Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Chris Weidenbar, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Flying Officer Stacey Ross. We are honoured to acknowledge the Air Force History and Heritage Publishing Symposium delegation and members of 462 Squadron, RAAF, who are joining us this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and by students on behalf of the following schools. From South Australia, Endeavour College, Mawson Lakes, and from Tasmania, St Patrick's College in Prospect. I now ask all who are able to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Thank you. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Aircraftman Class 1, Francis Leo Baxendale. Francis Baxendale was born on the 20th of May 1919 in Newcastle, New South Wales, the son of Thomas and Eleanor Baxendale. When he was young, Francis and his mother, father, and 2 siblings moved to Balmain in Sydney, where his father worked as a carpenter. In June 1932, the family was rocked by tragedy when Baxendale's father was crushed by falling timber while working on a steamship in Sydney Harbour. After completing his schooling, Baxendale worked as a labourer and moulder at the rubber company Dunlop Perdriel in Drummoyne. He was a keen sportsman who enjoyed playing football and handball. In October 1939, not long after the outbreak of the Second World War, Baxendale wrote to a local recruitment centre offering his services as a labourer in the Air Force. Although he did not have any experience or qualifications, he wrote he would endeavour to serve with excellence. On the 18th of December 1939, Baxendale formally enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force. He began his training as an aircraft mechanic and would later serve as a flight mechanic. Rather than taking part in air operations against enemy forces, he was a part of the large ground crew team that looked after and repaired aircraft in between missions. After training at a number of bases across New South Wales and Victoria, Baxendale joined No. 451 Squadron, an Army cooperation unit, and sailed for service in North Africa. From mid-1941, Baxendale serviced No. 451 Squadron's Hurricane and Westland Lysander aircraft in operations across North Africa. In November and December, they assisted in British operations against German forces at Tobruk. In November 1942, he transferred to the newly formed No. 462 Squadron in Egypt, which flew Handley Page Halifax heavy bombers on missions across North Africa and the Mediterranean. On the afternoon of the 12th of April 1943, Baxendale and 3 companions from No. 462 Squadron were driving from Alexandria in Egypt to Misrata in Libya when they pulled over to the side of the road to have some lunch. They pulled up near an old building on the Libyan coast and began preparing a fire to heat their meal. Baxendale began looking for a tin in which to make the fire and protect it from the wind, and as he made his search, stepped on a concealed landmine. The resulting explosion injured 2 of his companions and killed him instantly. He was 23 years old. He is buried in the Benghazi War Cemetery in Libya, where over 1,200 Commonwealth soldiers of the Second World War now lie. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Aircraftman Class 1 Francis Leo Baxendale, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them. lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.